thank you for inviting me. It means that I am one of the two MEPs with the role of negotiating directly with the Council, so the Member States, and with the Commission on the text, because the legislative procedure implies that the Commission has proposed a draft text of this AI Act, and then the European Parliament will propose its amendments, will vote its amended version, and the Council will do the same. So the Council of the Member States. And we will then confront our two versions of the text, see where we have differences because we made different amendments, and we will try to, in the needed time, to find a compromise so that there is a final single text. This is how the legislative process works. This means that we need first a Parliament position. Realistically, it will be by the end of 2022. And then in 2023, we'll be negotiating with the Council to have a final text. Being the co-rapporteur means that me and the colleague Tudorache from Romania will be leading the work with the other representatives of the various political groups to first present a batch of amendments that are a bit more consensual, then a second series of amendments by each of us, and then we will need to lead the work for finding compromises between different amendments proposals, so that we can have some blocks of amendments that we can bring to the committee vote, and then two committees are involved as leading committees: IMCO, my committee, the Internal Market, and the Colleagues Committee, that is the LIBE committee, the Committee on Civil Liberties. We will then have a version of the text from the committees that will be brought to the plenary, and then it will be approved. And then also the second phase, when we negotiate with the Council, it will be me and the colleague that will lead the negotiating team with so the governments on the other side of the table. This is our work. It's a big work, especially for a regulation, because we are talking about real legislation, not like political statements. This is something that has immediate impact with no adaptation, because it's a regulation, not a directive, so it's immediately applicable when it is approved. So we are concentrating on this. Personally, I don't take and I don't have any other legislative responsibility since I took the AI Act. I do other things. I'm also the leader of my own party in the European Parliament, but I don't do as legislator singularly any other work on legislation, because this is obviously a quite committing work to be done. I think that we see issues where that are not going to be changed. Others that will be changed also with possible different views with the Council. For example, I'm sure that we will, as Parliament, we will support an amendment that we know the Council will present on extending the social scoring ban also to private entities, so to forbid the use of AI to make classification of citizens for illegal uses, which is being done in other parts of the world. For sure, we are considering from the side of the Parliament that the self-certification for some of the users that can be considered high risk might deserve instead external scrutiny, given their complexity and the possible negative effects on fundamental rights. Probably this needs to be involved when we deal with users that are not only high risk, but are regarding life, health, family issues, citizenship status. We should have an extra extra ex-ante certification when we deal with issues that can in fact destroy life of another human being if dealt in an erroneous way. Also, we are thinking of changes the way sandboxes are designed, so the spaces for innovation and experimentation outside of the legislative framework, to provide greater flexibility for companies. And also we are one thing that we don't want to be changed on what is already there is the ban to real-time biometric recognition, which we will look at the exceptions that are there for law enforcement, but we don't want the practice to be generally adopted, which might create a lot of problems in terms of control over life of citizens. So we and also one last point I might be useful to mention is that I'm convinced that the Council will also support, like we do, a modification on the proposal of the Commission that requires the data sets to be, for the high risk, to be without error. We know this is an excessive and impossible request for companies, so we will not for sure leave that formulation there, because we think we cannot request a error-free data set. So as you see, there are aspects where we expect to be in line with the Council, others where we will make proposals to change and we will then need to negotiate, others where we are in line with the Commission, like the biometric surveillance ban. We can say that the fact that artificial intelligence covers different sectors, and above all, it's not something that is yet fully known. This is one of the biggest challenges. It is like this so much that scientists and engineers themselves are amazed often by outputs produced by AI systems. As you know, the Parliament normally works through ad hoc committees such as the Economic Affairs, Agriculture, Employment. In this case, we have to regulate something that will have an impact on all sectors, which is why the negotiations, but also the drafting of the regulation itself, are particularly complex. In this case, more than ever, it's important to consult with all stakeholders, both from industry and civil society, in order to have a comprehensive picture of possible unexpected effects that artificial intelligence and its regulation will have in the coming years. For sure, for example, the GDPR has certainly prepared the field for a type of regulation based more on principles such as accountability and transparency, and on risk-based approaches, which are useful when it's not possible to act very specifically on every single sector. So a crucial point will be to have a legislation that is adaptable, that has flexibility to update itself when things will change, because AI is still a very developing field in itself. And the Parliament, to act on this, we can say, horizontal nature of the topic, has prepared itself for this legislative work that we are doing, of which I'm one of the leading MEPs. It has prepared itself with a 1 year of a special committee on artificial intelligence, of which I'm also one of the main members. We are going to produce very soon a kind of final vision paper on AI that will be very encompassing and will also touch on the direction that we will take with this legislation, but also with other legislation that will come. For example, the liability AI, liability for AI products, which is not part of this regulation, and we will still have also, for example, the issue of permanent training, lifelong learning on AI, which is also only partially taken care of in this legislation. So the Parliament has been working on it also from a more vision and political point of view, but now we are also very much working on the concrete legislation, as I was explaining, with this AI Act. On the question of competition and the trust issue. We are supportive as Parliament of the trust-based approach on AI that the Commission has developed. We started our work from that, and we think we can achieve a competitive model based on our fundamental values that is also capable of building trust in a not easy context like the one of the democracy, when you have to develop technological solutions involving such disruptive new innovations. So we are going in this direction. Also the Parliament in its paper that we will release will go in the similar direction to the Commission, and we are also as I said, convinced that we can develop a competition, a healthy competition, and also influence the other models in the world with being true to our values. That is to put the human being at the center, the human-centric approach, which is, as I said, unavoidable approach if we want to deal with the democratic context with AI. So we need to be ready to develop incentives, to develop spaces also for easier development of AI, to work on our cluster development of AI ecosystems that we have seen around Europe. We need to put enough investment, because it cannot be that only regulation is there. We need to have public and private investment, and we need the regulation to be also helpful to support investment. Our daily work in this very problematic moment is also important that we look at this issue of our digital sovereignty and how we develop our model for AI and digital space, because that's also part of how we can be a strong Europe in a difficult world like the one we are in now. We are looking on how to adjust the definition, in the sense that we want to be sure that no algorithm, that are no AI algorithms are included, because we need to be ambitious in the regulation, but we need to be also clear on what is part of the regulation and what is not part of it. I think we will push for also some general indication on algorithmic safety and health, but not we cannot transform the AI Act into the Algorithm Act. So we need to be careful, and probably we will try to do some adjustment. But when I say adjustment, it's because we are not convinced that we need to fundamentally change the definition that was proposed by the Commission. We need to tinker on it, but not change it radically. We think it's already quite balanced. The point is we need to obviously put value into the legal responsibility that those that do the certification for themselves, the self-certification, have. So there must be checks, there must be resources for the authorities and for the public institutions to be able to guarantee a safety and a reality of the self-assessment, but then with clear responsibilities in the chain of the AI usage. And also we also need to imagine, I mentioned it earlier, imagine forms of ex-ante certification for the most dangerous, the most problematic high-risk users. So these can be ways to avoid the risk of having a mechanical checklist.